Australia, or perhaps more specifically, the Commonwealth of Australia, is the largest country in the Oceania region. It is a sovereign country consisting of the mainland itself, the island of Tasmania, and many other smaller islands too. In terms of landmass and total area, Australia is the 6th largest country in the world, though huge swathes of it are not so habitable, and the vast majority of its citizens are concentrated on the east coast. The phrase "the bush" has an iconic status in Australian life and has a special symbolic meaning to Australians, and tends to be used in two different settings. When talking about the land specifically, it simply means a wooded area, but not a dense forest. It is usually dry and nitrogen-poor soil, mostly grassless, with thick to thin woody shrubs and bushes. When talking about people, the bush means any unpopulated areas outside of the major metropolitan areas. This can include mining and farming areas. It is not unusual to have a mining town in the desert called the bush in the media. TheCityJournal.net states that every 15 minutes that passes, someone is reported missing in Australia. Thankfully, most of these people are found within the first week, but there are still 1,600 individuals that have been missing for longer than 3 months. According to the Australian authorities, between 2008 and 2015, over 305,000 people were reported missing in the country, at an average of 38,159 missing person reports each year. Youths aged 13 to 17 years were the most likely to go missing. Half of all people reported missing were in this age group, and less than 10% were children. More than 60% of those who go missing return or are found within 48 hours. 98% are ultimately located, most safe and well. This video, however, is going to focus on the 2%, the people who go missing and whose disappearance has never been solved or has never been fully explained. Before we get into the disappearances, I wanted to ask you, if possible, to like the video, to leave a comment and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd appreciate that a lot. And as you might have noticed, I've changed the channel name to Lost. Do see the community page for more info on that. Now with that being said, let's explore the first disappearance. The first incident that we're going to discuss is that of Patrick Moriarty, a 70-year-old Irish emigrant who settled in Australia in the 1960s. Patrick preferred to be called Paddy and made the remote town of Larimer his home. This town is located in the outback Northern Territory off the Stuart Highway, and at the time, Larimer was the home to 11 residents, so it was very remote. Paddy was a former cattle station worker and loved life in this rural place. Every day after work, Paddy would visit the Pink Panther Hotel, which was his usual place of drink, and he had become best friends with the former owner, Barry Sharp, over the years. Paddy worked for Barry, though I'm not sure in what capacity. One thing I am sure of though was that Paddy was always with his dog, Kelly, who unfortunately would disappear alongside her companion. Paddy was last seen on the 16th of December 2017, leaving the hotel after his usual drinks. A tourist in the area gave Paddy some barbecued chicken leftovers, and Paddy did make it home because the chicken was found in his microwave. Paddy's house was located 100 meters or so from the hotel, but when Paddy failed to arrive at the hotel the following day, the alarm was raised. Detective Sergeant Matt Allen said that Paddy was a man of strict routine and that he was set in his ways, and that it was very concerning that he hadn't shown up. Barry called on Paddy at his home, but he received no answer and came to the realization that he wasn't in and no one else had seen him. The locals then mounted a search around the town and the surrounding bush, but to no avail. Barry then contacted the authorities, and Sergeant Tom Chalk made the hour drive to the remote town. Tom questioned the townspeople and a search and rescue team was called in. The authorities had helicopters flying overhead and search dogs, along with many searchers on the ground. Searchers were left dumbfounded because they fully expected to find him lost in the bush, but they never found a single trace of Paddy or Kelly. It became known to the authorities that Paddy had a very strange feud with the local pie shop owner, Fran Hodges. The pair had been arguing since December of 2016, and Fran stated that Paddy had taken a disliking to her, though she didn't like him either. She said that Paddy threw a kangaroo carcass under her bedroom window and did the same thing to her shop window in 2017. Because no clues were surfacing, authorities began to suspect foul play and question Fran, but could find no evidence to suggest that she had anything to do with the disappearance. She said, "He didn't like me and I didn't like him either, but I didn't do anything to him. I reckon Paddy got lost in the bush. Perhaps he tried to stop his dog from chasing a kangaroo. He probably got lost and frightened and had a heart attack. I don't believe anyone's done anything to him." Detective Allen was astounded that they could find absolutely no evidence whatsoever in relation to this disappearance and vowed that the department would never give up on finding Paddy. Throughout the case, authorities maintained the belief that Paddy must have met with foul play, presumably because the alternative of simply disappearing without a trace doesn't make a lot of sense. It's worthy of note that there were never any signs of foul play other than the assumptions. Officers and searchers alike could find no evidence of a struggle and said that Paddy's house was left undisturbed. However, despite the large-scale search on land and air, his whereabouts were never discovered. The helicopters never made any positive sightings and the dogs never picked up his scent. Other than foul play, one popular theory was, as described by Fran, the idea that Kelly had seen a kangaroo and chased after it, which apparently she was known to do. It had been argued that if Kelly had chased after another animal, she would have come home unless she had been injured. If she didn't come back, or Paddy could hear that she was hurt, it's likely that he would have gone after her and conducted his own search. Though it's worthy of note that this was an extensive search and generated a lot of media attention, and if something awry had occurred out in the bush, he or Kelly should have been located, so where did they go? There's a brilliant documentary dedicated to Paddy and his disappearance, which I can highly recommend, and if you want to go in depth on this one, I will leave a link in the description below. At this point, let's travel to Tasmania, an island state of Australia. This is where the retired high school teacher Bruce Fairfax, 66 years old, went missing on the 14th of October 2017. Bruce was said to be an adventurous, highly intelligent individual that loved hiking and sightseeing. Bruce adored his dog, Tessa, which was presumably one of the reasons he enjoyed hiking so much, because he was able to do it with her. Bruce, Tessa and his wife Louise planned to hike in the southern part of the country southwest of Dover on the Duck Hole Lake Trail. Louise was in better shape than Bruce, though that was mostly due to Bruce suffering from Parkinson's disease, which he required daily medication for. Louise had a love of photography and walked ahead of Bruce and Tessa to take some pictures of a nearby waterfall. A distance was not specified, but from what I can gather, didn't seem to be very far away, and nearby was a picnic area that the pair were supposed to meet at. Parks Tasmania lists the 2.5-mile track as an easy stroll through a forest of stringy barks and rainforest, suitable for all age groups. From what I can gather, the trail isn't too taxing on the body and is clearly marked, or rather, it is unlikely that someone would lose the trail. Louise, who was taking pictures of the waterfall, sounded the alarm when Tessa caught up to her, alone. Louise waited for a moment, but grew nervous and went to check on Bruce, but there was no sign of him. When Bruce was last seen, she said that he was enjoying himself, was eating an apple and gave her a cheeky smile as she was heading off towards the waterfall. When Louise failed to find Bruce, she quickly called the authorities, who responded to the disappearance quickly. 60 people, including search and rescue personnel, police and volunteers were all over that trail. When the search produced no results, a helicopter was deployed over the area, fitted with thermal imaging technology alongside dog teams who were introduced into the forest. The searchers were astounded at Bruce's disappearance because outside the trail, walking is basically not possible. Search coordinator and senior constable Chris Williams had this to say: "Bruce is a member of a bushwalking club and fellow members from the Launceston have travelled down to join the search. Duckhole Lake is a flooded sinkhole listed among Tasmania's 60 great short walks. The bushland around the trail is dense and coarse. You get off the track and it's the type of terrain that you can't walk through. If you want to get through it, you get on your hands and knees and push through it." How Bruce managed to do that is not clear given his age and ailments. It seems that searchers were of the belief that he should have been found. Williams continued, "I'm optimistic about finding him, but as time goes on, it becomes more concerning. Why we haven't found him so far? We're looking into all areas that he should be, but we haven't come across him." Interestingly, searchers came across a partially eaten apple and a banana core and sent them for forensic testing to see if they belonged to Bruce. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the results of the test. Days had passed and no signs of Bruce had surfaced at any point, and now people were becoming concerned because the longer Bruce had gone without his medication, the less clear he would be able to think. Though this doesn't explain Bruce's initial disappearance, but this was now becoming a major concern. Williams said that they fully expected to find him off the track, but they don't believe that he will acknowledge them. He said hopefully the search dogs pick up his scent and may lead us to a new area to search. This hope was placed in the dogs for good reason. On this channel, we cover these types of incidents a lot, and I'm constantly picking out the cases where the dogs never find a scent at any point. But on average, the search dogs are tremendously helpful in finding the missing. For some time now, I've been trying to find a study on search dog effectiveness, and I finally found one by Dr. Greatbatch et al. There is a widespread and long-standing use of dogs in land search and rescue operations, and their effectiveness is well accepted within the SAR community. However, very little published research exists that quantifies the effectiveness with a realistic search and rescue environment. In this study, they took 10 dog and handler pairs and placed things randomly in various environments and then calculated the success rate of the find. They said that the dogs were 76.4% successful overall with an effectiveness of 62.9%. I'm not actually sure how they're calculating the effectiveness score here because I don't have the time to go through the study, but I will refer to this study in more detail in another video, perhaps specifically focusing on cases where dogs were introduced. Back onto Bruce, Williams vowed that the search would endure until they had a result. However, 3 days later, still not a single trace of Bruce was found, which was just completely bizarre and threw everyone off. Because absolutely nothing was surfacing, the search operations were called off, with plans for small-scale, specialist operations to continue over the course of a week. In the end, there were far more people in the bushlands than just the 60. It's not clear how many, but the authorities stated, "We would just like to thank the overwhelming number of volunteers who have come forward to help over the last 5 days. They have done a fantastic job in searching and researching the area, which also contains some impenetrable terrain." Louise said, "I never saw him again, and we have no idea what happened. Police searched every track and road in the area by car and foot. We searched from the sky using a helicopter, and that kept going until about 10:30 PM. The helicopter had thermal imaging technology and stunningly strong lights, but nothing was found. I explored off track in all the places where perhaps someone could go off to the side, but to no avail." Ultimately, all involved were left baffled at Bruce's disappearance, presumably with a sense of bewilderment at the fact that the search in its entirety had failed to produce any clues. Unfortunately, the results of the analysis of the apple and banana were not reported by the press, so it's unclear if they were Bruce's or not. In the end, it's not clear what happened here. Did Bruce become confused and then walk off the trail and somehow forced himself through the dense terrain described by Chris Williams? Animal predation didn't seem to have occurred here, as that is normally quite obvious to the searchers. This is one of those disappearances where I don't really know where to go with it. I feel that Bruce really should have been found in this situation, and if he was close, then the dog should have had some success. What do you make of this one? Now, this final disappearance didn't take place in the country of Australia or any islands belonging to it, but rather one of Australia's nearest neighbours and friends, New Zealand. "32-year-old British national Stephanie Simpson had moved to New Zealand sometime in 2019 and was living and working in the Wanaka area as a landscaper. I'm not completely sure of the precise date, but it appears that on the 7th, 8th or 9th of February 2020, Stephanie had planned a solo 4-hour hike in the Mount Aspiring National Park, located approximately 40 miles north of Wanaka. She was last heard from on the 6th when she told family and friends where she was going and what she was doing. However, her plans seemed to change, as on the following day she told friends that she had decided to camp out in the park too. This would be the last time that she would ever be heard from again. Stephanie's brother-in-law, Sam Hazelton, told the press Stephanie is very and physically fit. She is experienced in outdoor activities and has already completed a number of hikes. She is such a fun-loving, kind, determined and adventurous woman. Stephanie didn't turn up for work the following Monday and was subsequently reported missing, which of course began the search effort. Thankfully, because Stephanie had told people where she was going and mentioned the specific area, the authorities were able to pinpoint and focus their efforts. Unfortunately though, the press reports of this incident were not very good at all. There's no mention of exact dates, or even what the search effort looked like. However, I have been able to find out that the search consisted of multiple teams, thermal imaging drones, helicopters and dog teams, though the press didn't report specific numbers. During the search, the weather took a turn for the worst, and on the 12th of February, the Mirror.co.uk reported this. The region was hit with heavy rain in recent days. New Zealand police said that 2 hikers were found over the weekend in swollen rivers near the area where Miss Simpson said she planned to go hiking. Unfortunately, the thermal imaging equipment didn't seem to be helping, and the search dogs never picked up a scent, and no clues were found either at this point. The police had been notified though that Stephanie had definitely been in the park, as another hiker told them that she had seen Stephanie hiking there. It wasn't until Friday the 14th when a discovery was made, and we're going to have to get bizarre at this point. It's not specific as to whether the discovery was made by helicopter or drone, but an aerial search spotted Stephanie's boots and backpack seemingly abandoned. Annoyingly, the press didn't report how close these items were to one another, which could prove to be a pretty significant detail. Later that day, Stephanie's body was found around 3,000 feet upstream in the Pike Creek area. Sergeant Mark Kirkwood from West Coast Search and Rescue said there were no suspicious circumstances surrounding Miss Simpson's passing, and it appeared to be an accident. It seemed that she had left the hiking track, taken off her boots, and gone into a waterfall. It's a very hazardous area. We have no idea why she went into the water. This was a heartbreaking disappearance that was terribly reported on by the press, and many questions are left that need to be addressed. Stephanie, for some reason, abandoned her boots and backpack, which presumably had all of her supplies inside. Why? From what I can gather, the average temperatures in February range between highs of 25 degrees Celsius and 8 degrees Celsius. That is 77 and 47 Fahrenheit respectively. Could Stephanie have suffered from hypothermia at the lower end of the temperatures there? I suppose it couldn't be fully ruled out, especially since there were heavy rains in the area at times. However, Stephanie was wearing a jacket, and as far as I can tell was found still wearing it, so I'm not sure that lends itself well to the hypothermia theory, because one would imagine that would also have been abandoned, though again it cannot be completely ruled out. Did Stephanie become delirious at some point, which led her to remove her boots? It's important to note that the authorities had absolutely no idea why she took her boots off and why she wandered into the water. They're not even sure how she ended up in the water, other than theorising that she went into a waterfall for some reason that they're also not aware of. I can imagine a person becoming delirious and wanting to rid themselves of the weight of the backpack, but the boots seem very odd to me, though I have personally never experienced being in that state of mind. The authorities stated that the area she managed to get to was very hazardous and that they had absolutely no idea why she would have left the hiking track to go in that direction. Perhaps being delirious could explain why she made that decision, or could another explanation be the presence of a third party, animal or otherwise? Perhaps a sense of nearby danger pushed her in that direction, though that still doesn't account for the removal of the boots. The press also reported that her body had been sent to the coroner to determine a cause of passing, presumably because there wasn't an obvious conclusion in terms of injuries. However, and again incredibly frustratingly, the press, as far as I can tell, never updated with the coroner's conclusions. Ultimately, it's not clear exactly what happened to Stephanie, and almost every single question remains unanswered. Why did she remove her boots and backpack? Did she do this at the same time where they found apart, and by what distance? Why did she enter the water? What was the cause of passing, and were there any injuries present? I apologise for the constant complaining here, but the reporting on this incident was absolutely abysmal, and we've got to do better than this. Thank you for watching. If you found the video interesting, then please do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, it helps me a lot. If not, then feel free to leave a dislike. I'm just looking for your honest opinions, so do share. And do share your thoughts on all of the disappearances discussed. I'd also just like to say a special thank you to my patrons who keep this channel moving forward, so thank you very much for your support. I hope that you've had a great day, or evening depending on where you are. Be safe guys, and I'll see you next time. Peace.